Welcome back. We're about to meet someone today who engages and teaches a unique sport that I personally only heard of recently, parkour. Is it an indoor or outdoor sport? Why is this a sport worth exploring? To help us answer these questions and more, we have with us Cara Joy Aydin. Cara has recently completed her Honours in Kinesiology at McMaster University. She has studied exercise psychology, sports injuries, and fundamentals of rehabilitation. She currently works for Amanah Fitness, an organization that seeks to promote nutrition and activity. She also coaches introductory women's parkour. Cara, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get right to it. So what is parkour?
So essentially parkour is using your body in as efficient a manner as possible to get from A to B. So no matter what obstacles are in the way, you use your body in a whole variety of ways to overcome those obstacles. So it could be running up walls, it could be vaulting over railings, over various barriers, things like that. So,
and you don't have any sort of like, you're just using your body, so you don't have any like, you know how in boxing you'll have gloves or stuff like that? There's no parkour equipment per se?
No, just good shoes.
Okay.
Good shoes is important, yeah. You want to have something that sticks. So.
Okay, and how did you actually get into parkour?
So I came to McMaster University in first year, and I'd always been interested in parkour. I think I was 12 when I first saw a video on YouTube that was all centered around parkour.
Okay.
It's like, wow,
like
this
you
is so
just
cool.
randomly came across it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just a neat video, and it was also mixed with some like gymnastics, flipping and such like that. So I was interested in that, but there was never an avenue to kind of do it other than self-directed, so didn't pursue it the whole time. And then
I have to ask, sorry, can I jump in and ask?
Yeah.
When you saw the video, did you see a woman or a man practicing?
men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is, we'll get into
Yeah.
it, but very heavily male weighted. So
Okay.
yeah, so
So you saw the video?
saw the video, interested in it for 8 years, and then I'm 20, I come to university, and a girl makes a post on the kinesiology page saying, hey, there's a beginner's parkour meet if anyone wants to come. So I went to it, super nervous. I was like, I'll probably be awful at it. I was quite low confidence at the time, and I was never a sporty person.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, I could just go for half an hour and like leave if I'm like really bad or something. Ended up there for 3 hours. And
Oh, nice.
loved it,
So how did you, so it's interesting because you said you were never a sporty person. So you saw this parkour video when you were 12.
Yeah.
And then you applied to kinesiology. So how did that have a decision in terms of like parkour, like you wanting to get into that as a Muslim woman? Like what led you to that field?
Well, I would say that I was mostly pursuing kinesiology. At the time, I actually wasn't Muslim, so it's really enhanced my degree going through it as a Muslim, because learning about the human body, you see the signs of Allah, of God, in so many of the things you study. So being Muslim has actually really enhanced my degree, but when I went into it, I wasn't Muslim. So I was aiming for physiotherapy, and I really liked the aspects of rehabilitating and of kind of taking someone where they are now and having like the physical and the emotional, psychological aspect of it and helping them to improve. So that's what geared me towards kinesiology, as it's kind of the most directly relevant, studying the human body and such, to go into physiotherapy. So,
and then did it also help you as you started going into parkour, like the studies itself?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah, because I'd be like doing something and I'd be like learning, oh, like this practice effect like is relevant here. The things I was studying, I'm like, oh, this is very relevant for all this.
So I want to shift the conversation just a bit briefly. I know you said going into it you weren't Muslim. So how did, and I think offline you had mentioned that parkour actually played an important part in your life in terms of leading you to Islam. So tell me a little bit about how that factored in.
Yeah, so I was very unexposed and you could say probably closed off to sort of just learning about religion in general. So I didn't even know there were people that prayed 5 times a day. I didn't know the difference between
Muslim. And you did grow up in, like you grew up in Toronto, like in...
I grew up in BC, actually.
In BC,
yeah.
okay.
Outskirts of Vancouver area.
Oh,
so
okay.
There's not as many Muslims. There's certainly more now, especially when I go back. But at the time, I didn't recognize hijab. I didn't know anything about it. So coming here was really neat because I find sort of GTA, Hamilton area is a lot more culturally diverse than what I was exposed to. So we were in a big group. We'd just like get together a couple times a week, all train. And one of the members one day was like, oh, be right back, I'm just gonna go pray. And I was like, pray, what's that about?
Yeah.
So it sparked a curiosity in me, and I really liked seeing it. I could really see the contentment of going to go pray, and it led
and
me
like
to
taking away from what it is that you were doing just for a brief moment to reconnect.
Taking that step out of life and whatever it is you're doing to connect with God.
So it sounds really interesting, because now for you, parkour is obviously, it has a spiritual element associated with it. So do you find that women, I know you coach women, so do you find that there's an element, like how do you find other women are taking the sport? Like does it challenge you? I know you talked about challenge you physically and mentally, but do you think there's that other spiritual component as well, or it's kind of like sort of removed and it's just mental and physical strength?
I suppose it would be dependent on each person approaching it. I have definitely found, though, with the parkour community, parkour is very, rather than being like team competitive or anything like that, it's very self-competitive. It's all based on self-improvement. So everyone in the community that's also training with you gives you new ideas. They're there to support you and encourage you, but ultimately you're trying to better whatever you were last able to do.
So like in terms of going through the obstacle, so if you get to point B, for example, how do you get from point B to point C kind of thing?
Yeah, and it's in whatever way. So I remember one of the members on the first day was saying how much they love having new people because they bring a new perspective. They see the same barrier and obstacle in a different way.
Okay, interesting.
Than someone who's more experienced might. So, and I found that too since coaching, other women will be like, oh, why not approach it this way? Why not approach it this way? And it really diversifies, and it's creative mentally.
Yeah. So let's talk about coaching. So I know you do coach women's parkour. So how is, in terms of coaching, what's your role in terms of guiding people? Because it sounds like it's more of a self exercise. So as a coach, what are you doing? So not to doubt your role, but
okay, no worries. Yeah. So I'm sort of coaching out of what I've learned myself. I'm not actually certified. Fairly recently, there are parkour certifications, but I haven't pursued that yet. Just to state that. But essentially, we start kind of bottom up. We start with all the safety training, how to land safely, absorptive, how to roll out of anything. So by the time you start doing any moves, if you are to skip a step or stumble or anything, you're able to get out of it safely. So we kind of work up from that, and then we work on what each person's sort of goals are. So some people prefer doing vaults on railings, for example. Some prefer like distance jumping, things like that. So we kind of get together, and sometimes you can be working on one skill as much as you want, or we can kind of do like a follow the leader style where one person will start and out of their own mind create an obstacle, and each person gets over it a different way. So,
very interesting. Now I know you coach women specifically. So why did you make that decision? Well, both I guess from an Islamic and also from a general perspective.
Sure. Yeah. So from an Islamic perspective, I sort of entered the world of parkour as a non-Muslim, and then as I progressed, I later became Muslim. And I started to kind of think like maybe I want to gear more towards a woman's environment, as parkour as a sport is quite heavily male dominated at the moment. So women are certainly coming into it, which is really great to see. But I kind of wanted to take that and sort of make my own environment to be more sort of Islamically appropriate too, and something I was more comfortable with. And then I also noticed as I was training, there'd be the odd woman that would come, and she would come for one session and then leave. Apart from the odd one, there were a couple other ones, but for many women, they found it very intimidating.
You mean, so when you weren't in a women's space?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so they would kind of come in and leave.
Yeah, in a co-ed space. So they found the men can progress quite rapidly, just having the physical advantage. And I also think personally, because a lot of men tend to use their bodies and keep up with sports a lot more through adolescence than women do. So that gives you kind of the awareness of your body and more confidence. So I found actually since starting my own meets, I've had way more women come and they stay, which is really cool. And a lot of them have said, we really prefer this, we like this. And these are non-Muslim women as well. So, but they're much more comfortable. Everyone's sort of more in the same ballpark, and we can progress in a similar way. So
interesting. I think that's it's sort of, there's always a stigma around like, okay, Muslim women and wanting their own spaces, but when it comes to sports, there is an element of, like, I know when I went to school, we had like a women's, like I had the girls' gym class and then the boys' gym class, so people often forget that that's sort of it like more than anything, it's just a level of comfort, right? Like you're among other women, and so it's just easier in some way. I mean, not completely easier, but you know what I mean? It's a little bit
right, for sure,
more comfortable. In terms of you know, when we think about other sports, like, you know, parkour, I'm not going to lie to you, this is the first time I came across it. I was like, ooh, what is this? And I Googled it and looked it up. Looks really cool. In terms of, like, why would you encourage someone to go into parkour versus another sport like, I don't know, boxing or soccer? What is it about parkour from your perspective, both as a coach and also from your area of study? Why would you encourage this more than another sport, for example?
Right. So, I mean, I don't want to speak on any other sports.
Of course, no, yeah.
For me personally, I wasn't a very like competitive person with other people, so I always found that played with me mentally. But with parkour, one of my favorite things about it is that it is so much more mental than physical even. So
how is that?
It's very creative in the way that you observe the environments, and then as you're overcoming these obstacles, you're overcoming your mental blocks on yourself of what you thought you were capable of. And so it was really neat. Like the first time I simply just like hopped over a railing, but I was incredibly excited because it was something I just had no idea I had the capability to do. I think it took me like 45 minutes or something.
Oh wow,
like
well,
very long.
that doesn't sound like anything easy to do.
So I mean, that is what I love, and I love seeing women finding, like realizing what they are capable of, and kind of working through those mental barriers that essentially we place on ourselves, and we just don't know what we're capable of, and it helps to have that kind of little push, and then you see, and then you're pretty amazed at what your body can do. So
do you find that the women that you're coaching, are they facing any challenges with the sport itself that you think need to be addressed?
I would say primarily what I'm already hoping to address is the co-ed environment typically. Thankfully, like the one I sort of started in, that I ended up moving away from for reasons, but the one that I started in, they're a very good group of people. They're very encouraging and such, but I know some women have found environments where they just feel like insufficient compared to what the men can do. So they've been very discouraged by that.
Gotcha.
So definitely that. And then I would say also just jumping into it, having that community really creates.
And is there, I mean, I'm not gonna, you know, there are some women, like there is an element of competitiveness. Do you find that that's, you know, I'm thinking back to my sports days, I'm not very active either, but in school I remember there's always, even amongst girls, there is sort of this like, you know, women tend to sometimes just want to like also get ahead and like want to compete with each other, and sort of that creates sort of a negative environment. Do you find that that happens with this, and like how do you, if it does, how do you overcome that?
For the most part, I would say I've also attended, there's an annual like women's jam that happens in North America.
Oh wow.
Canada, North America, or Canada and the US. And some people from internationally come too and get together. And it seems like the type of characters that are interested in parkour tend to not bring those characters too much, which is really interesting. So I think because it's a bit of like a niche thing, it tends not to have that. So I haven't struggled with that too much. Probably the only thing I've noticed is the odd woman feeling like building on her own confidence and feeling like a bit perhaps intimidated, maybe a little bit, just by like getting into it and working over first starting the odd one. But it's just a matter of, I found like encouragement and letting them know that we've all started somewhere, and I'm always learning from the brand new people too. So
well, I guess, and that's the case with any new sport that you adopt, right? Like I know I recently took up boxing in the beginning. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But once you sort of push yourself, you kind of figure a way out. Thank you so much, Cara, for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.